Hi guys, Miss Devlin here. Today we're going to be talking about A Schoolgirls Diary from I Am Malala. So first we're going to talk about analyzing features of informational text. This is this right here. Remember, we had already talked about a memoir before when we had talked about Brown Girl Dreaming. It is told in the first person point of view and describes events from the writer's perspective. It is also the writer's personal thoughts and feelings, and it uses an informal or intimate tone. Now we are going to look at prologue. So, a prologue is a preface that is going to provide background information. We get a prologue in the excerpt that we're about to read from I Am Malala. A map. You should be pretty familiar with a map. It's just a graphic feature that is going to illustrate where events take place. And this is going to clarify our text context for us. So this is going to give us a clear picture of where our story, where our text is taking place. Central idea. This should also be pretty familiar to you. It's a main point. It is conveyed through details, descriptions, quotations, and examples. It may be tied to the author's purpose for writing the work. When we look at generate questions, the only thing I need you to highlight out of here is you need to be asking who, what, when, where, why, and how questions to help you analyze how ideas, events, and people are introduced and elaborated upon. So you need to be questioning yourself, questioning the text so that you can be more successful, so that you understand the things that they're trying to get you to understand in the way that you should understand them. We already know what it looks like to annotate. We're just going to do a little bit of the background. It's important to note that she was publicly supporting girls' education. In 2012, she was attacked and wounded by gunmen. Then her family moved to England, where she continued to advocate for girls' rights. In 2014, just 2 years after the assassination attempt on her life, she became the youngest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. So she receives this Nobel Peace Prize when she is 17 years old. I'm not going to read through the whole story. Pause now so you can read through the whole story. I am just going to be answering the questions on the side with you guys. So let's look at this right here. Let's see. Malala has been told that she can't go to school. Still, she insists on going and on telling the rest of the world about what is happening. So, she has been told that she cannot go to school. She insists on going and on telling the rest of the world what is happening in her life. I want you to consider the word insist. What does it mean to insist something? How does this give us better insight to Malala? So I want you to consider the word insist. And then I want you to tell me, what does this suggest about Malala? It could be one word, doesn't have to be anything too descriptive. Just what does the word insist suggest about Malala? So if we go back to here, this is the dedication. And dedication is who you are writing a text for. So she's saying that she's writing this to all the children all over the world who have no access to education, to teachers who bravely continue teaching, and to anyone who has fought for their basic human rights and the basic human right to an education. So if we look over here to analyze features of informational text, it says mark details in paragraphs 2 to 3 that help set the scene of the prologue. So I'm going to change my color here just to be a little bit more clear and concise. So I'm going to mark details in paragraphs 2 to 3 that help set the scene of the prologue. So what I'm going to be looking for is things that give me more details about a time or a place in this prologue, in this 2 to 3 paragraphs. So she says I'd stayed up far too late the night before. She says she hears the rooster crow at dawn, and then she hears the morning call to prayer from the mosque nearby. It's important to note what a mosque is. Um, this is going to be, a religious place of worship for people who subscribe to the Islamic religion. So you would just make a little note right there. This part right here, though, I stayed up far too late the night before. This reminds me of regular kids. This reminds me of you. This reminds me of me when we have stuff to do. She was studying for an exam. She stayed up far too late. Again, these give me more details about the time and the place. So if I look back over here, what does this background information reveal about the author? So I'm going to put this in blue. I'm going to use a blue text box right here. So this tells me that she is a typical teenager. She does typical teenage things. She stays up too late when she shouldn't. She's staying up too late to study. Um, it also is giving us details about where she lives, right? There is a rooster crow at dawn, and the morning call to prayer from the mosque nearby. So this is suggesting that she lives in an area where Islam is the main religion. And we know this from the mosque detail, right? Also suggests that she lives in an area where Islam is the main religion. Okay, scrolling down to our second page. So it says, what can you tell about the author from her interaction with her mother? We're going to mark the quoted words in paragraph 4. So she says, wake up, Pisho. This is kitten in Pashto. It's 7:30 and you're late for school. So if I grab my text box or if I grab my markup but in a different color, what do these words suggest about Malala's relationship to her mother? So this is going to tell us, she's calling her a pet name. She's calling her a term of love, a term of endearment. So this is going to tell us that she cares about her daughter. She cares about her interests and her education. She calls her a pet name. She is waking her up for school. She's making sure that she's not super late for school. Um, she gives her a term of endearment, a term of love. I am going to have you note that this map right here, this is showing us the country of Pakistan and then a detailed view of Swat Valley. Swat Valley, again, remember, is where Malala lives. She lives in Mingaray, which is right here. This is a detailed view of the Swat Valley, providing context for our text. We're going to scroll down to the next one, grab our markup again. So it says in paragraph 9, mark details that lead you to pause and ask questions. So I would say that the part that leads me to ask the most amount of questions is this last sentence in here. I jumped in that Tuesday morning and never looked back at my home. She's talking about, catching the bus. She catches the bus and then never looks back home. And then it says, what questions do you have at this point in the text? Look for answers as you continue to read. So I'm going to grab my text box again, and I'm just going to type out some questions that I may have had, especially about that suspenseful last portion. For paragraphs 1 through 9, we have gotten what Malala's daily life is like. We have gotten what a day in her life is like. And then we end with this very suspenseful, very dramatic sentence before we get into the next section. So I want to know, why does she never look back at her home? And does this mean that she never returns? Um, what's going to happen to her at school? If she's going to school and she never looks back, what's going to happen to her at school? Is she just anxious and nervous about her test? Not their test, her test. You may have different questions. You may have other questions. Please feel free to put your answers here, not mine. Um, she's calling attention to this moment, right? She's doing this for a reason. She is trying to get us to understand something. And so we're going to look at it real quick. I would just make a note right here. She's trying to accomplish something with this line break, right? She is stopping here. She has included this sentence before the section break. So she may just be trying to build suspense within within readers, right? Or build your interest. She also may just want to call attention to this moment, right? This is a life-altering moment. Anything in her life after this moment is never going to be the same, especially after this day. We don't exactly know what's going to happen, but we know that it's something that's not going to be good, especially based off of this last sentence right here. Notice and note, big questions. Mark any details in paragraph 14 that you find interesting. So I'm going to go grab my purple again. Any details in paragraph 14. So if I look at paragraph 14, it's a hefty paragraph, but it's describing her ride to school, right? So there are brightly colored rickshaws having the footnote down here as small motorized vehicles. There's women in flowing robes, men on scooters. There's traffic. They pass a shopkeeper who is butchering chickens, a boy selling ice cream cones, a billboard for Dr. Humayun's Hair Transplant Institute. They are having conversations about who is going to get the highest grades this term, and then they start to sing a song. So if I look here, it says, what challenge changed or confirmed what you already knew? So what we're going to do is compare your drive to school, my drive to school, with their drive to school. So we're going to say the things that are similar or things that are familiar first. So I would say that the traffic and the road signs and the conversations seem familiar to my experience. Just going to drag this text box here so you can see what I'm typing. Okay, and then I would say, however, and then I would start listing the differences, right? The types of vehicles, the names, and the shopkeeper are unfamiliar to me. They are not my experience. They are not like my experience. The only experience that I can akin to a shopkeeper butchering chickens is growing up in South Louisiana, way, further south than here, in Homa and in Golden Meadow, where people's livelihoods are, shrimping and fishing, crabbing and oyster. Um, and so they will prepare these things on the side of the road for you to purchase and bring home. It's fresh, there is no preservatives put on it. But this is the only thing that I can kind of akin to that. Uh, so that, Malala's trip to school is challenging my belief that students have the same experiences and similar lives everywhere. If we're looking at these passages right here, if we're looking at 16 to 24, um, this definitely gives us some good tone, some good mood. We can infer or conclude that something bad is about to happen to Malala. Even if we had no background information, even if we didn't know that, she was advocating for girls' rights to an education and was, the Taliban is trying to silence her through violence. Even if we didn't know that, we could conclude or infer that something bad is about to happen. I conclude decided to jump down. Okay, we're gonna scroll down and get right into a schoolgirl's diary. Okay, so there's a lot of footnotes in here. Make sure that you understand those. Make sure that you understand what a debate is and what an edict is. I also want you to note that an edict is different than a law or a rule, right? It is enforced as a law, but it is different than a law. The word edict is an old word. It's usually reserved for, uh, rules decided by kings and dictators. It's an old word, like I said. We don't really use this anymore, especially not in the United States. The United States, our laws are determined by legislatures. But if you think back to the American Revolution, you can make this connection to some prior knowledge here that one of the causes of the American Revolution was the issuing of edicts by the British command. So we do have a history with edicts. We have seen edicts before. Um, Also important to note that debate here, they are debating his edict, right? They are debating Fazula's edict. Um, they are debating whether a radio personality would be able to enforce this command or whether the Pakistani federal government is going to protect their rights as humans, as children, and stop Fazula and the things that he is saying. So I'm just going to go grab our markup here. I'm going to make sure that we are paying attention to debate, edict, radio, mullah, and Fazula's radio station. We do get a little bit more information about the Taliban here. They call themselves the Taliban because Talib means religious student. They are using Islamic fundamental tenets to, they've distorted these, they've changed these, they have contorted them to fit their agenda. The tenets are not inherently violent from the Quran or from the religion of Islam. I also really want you to pay attention to the word defy here. In our culture, girls do not defy the males and their families. Well, to defy someone is to oppose or refuse to cooperate with that person. But I want you to make a particular note about what defy means in terms of connotations, right? So I need you to understand that to defy someone is a brave act and it comes with consequences. This is important to note because it's not simply a refusal, right? It's not just saying, I don't want to do this because I don't want to do it. They are defying the males in their family, or they are going against the Taliban. They are going against this group of extremist, militant people. And that is a brave act, but it does come with consequences. They are refusing to cooperate for a reason. Whether you think that reason is justified or not, it is their reason. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit down here. So I'm going to grab my markup again. Why does Malala include numbers and dates in paragraph 33 and 35? Mark where the numbers are used. So if I go back up to 33 right here, they go from 27 girls to 10. Then if I go down to 35, we're getting first week of January, 14 January, and 10 again. I'm going to grab my text box. Actually, going to grab the markup again in blue. My text box in blue. It says, what is the importance of understanding these details? So the numbers are increasing our suspense, right? She's building this tension. She is trying to get you to note that time is running out. She wants you to be aware that numbers are playing a huge role, right? If I put a timer up on the board for 5 minutes and it gets down to 10 seconds, we all feel the pressure, right? We all feel the suspense building up until the end of the timer. I'm going to grab my markup again. Postpone. Postpone means to delay. It means to put it on the back burner. It means to reschedule it, right? I just want to quickly look at this paragraph right here. She's considering what she would do if she couldn't receive an education, right? How would I complete my studies and become a doctor, which was my greatest hope at the time? And then she says, the Taliban wants to turn the girls of Pakistan into identical, lifeless dolls. But what does she still think? What is her central idea of this section? She still thinks that all girls are, should have the opportunity, are deserving of the opportunity. All girls deserve the opportunity to receive an education. right, we're going to scroll down to this question. If I get out my purple. In paragraph 45, mark the term that is footnoted. So if I go up here to 45, um, it is the Holy Quran. The Quran is the sacred book of the religion of Islam. And if I come and grab my blue, how does the footnote help you understand the reasons that Malala's mother agrees to the decision? The decision being to write the diary for the BBC in order to expose what life is like in Pakistan under the Taliban rule. So the footnote explains that the Quran is the holy book of Islam. This is like the Christian Bible or the Hebrew scriptures of Judaism. So Malala's mother quotes the Quran in support of her daughter. This is the opposite of what the Taliban is doing. We can infer that Malala's mother is a moral person. She is a religiously moral person. She is using the Quran and its tenets to help guide her and her family's life to a better and brighter place. So I'm gonna type that readers may infer that Malala's mother is a religious and moral person. They believe that God is going to protect them if they make the right choice, right? They believe that they must act on behalf of their country, which is the right choice, and that God is going to protect them from the falsehood of the Taliban. They are going to be protected from the falsehood of false gods. That truth has to come forward, that putting their country first is going to benefit them, is going to make the truth come forward. Okay. So to note on this page is going to be pseudonym and bugged. Pseudonym definition being here, bugged definition being there. We know that Malala starts keeping a diary of her life in Pakistan, and that the effect is the world learns about life under the Taliban rule. She does this on purpose. She does this to defy their rules. She does this to be a revolutionary. We're looking at anonymous, anonymous being an undisclosed or unknown name. And then I'm going to grab my purple again. It says mark words in paragraph 54 that convey facts, and then mark words that convey thoughts and feelings. So if I'm looking in 54, I appreciated going even more. It was decided that wearing our uniforms was too dangerous, so we were told to dress in our everyday clothes. I decided I wasn't going to cower in fear from Fazula's wrath. That day, I chose my brightest pink shalwar kameez. So if I switch back to red, you get what a shalwar kameez is down there. Switch to blue. How does the author use facts, thoughts, and feelings to convey an idea in the paragraph? And then what is that idea? So we are going to answer that together. Um, by presenting facts and the thoughts or feelings in reaction to those facts. That's the part where she says, I wasn't going to cower in fear. The author, Malala, shows her own Bravery. She's being brave. They said, "Hey, we should not wear our uniforms. You're going to get targeted even more." So she says, "Okay, I'm not going to get targeted if I wear my uniform, but I'm still going to be defiant and I am still going to express myself." Um, she will find a way to express herself and her ideas no matter what. She is relentless, right? That insist word from the beginning. She is relentless. She is persistent. She's determined. She is steadfast. She is going to make her point. She is going to be heard no matter what it takes. She has said this multiple times. Okay, this last part. Mark any words in paragraph 62 to 63 that lead you to ask questions. So when I look at it, um, it was my father who did that. And then by April, my days as Gulmaki, the secret diarist, would be over. A number of reporters were following the story. And then it says, including a man from the New York Times. So if I go back, what questions do you have at the end of the excerpt, and what do you predict will happen? My questions are going to be, what does this mean for Malala's safety? We know that something good doesn't happen. We know what happens, um, but we don't really know how that, this ending of the New York Times connects to that beginning prologue portion. Who is the man from the New York Times? We don't get who it is. Why did the author single out the reporter from the New York Times? He is not the person who leaks her pseudonym, right? He is not the person who leaks her name. But obviously he plays a pretty important role in getting the story out to people. We can predict what is going to happen based off of these questions that we made. So the answers to these would be, I predict that Malala will be put in further danger because of the added attention. We can say that perhaps her or her family will suffer. They suffer emotional distress, they suffer physical distress. Um, and that, maybe the attention from this newspaper will expose her. All right. We are going to make sure that we understand what the central idea of this text is. So I'm going to put central idea, or CI for central idea. We're going to make sure that we understand that it is people should stand up or fight for what they believe in. If they did not do this, I think that, uh, maybe we would have never known what was happening in Pakistan. Maybe we would have never known what was happening with the Taliban. But we are lucky that we have the opportunity to read such things, especially from someone as brave and courageous as Malala Yousafzai.